Hey, what's up guys? It's Cugsley and welcome back to another video. So, I was thinking, right, while I'm making all these new rooms for the upcoming update, I thought, why not kind of, I was watching a masterclass recently. I thought, it'd be pretty cool if I kind of like showed how I make my rooms. Because I noticed that with a lot of the SCP stuff coming out that typically use my assets, a lot of them are made rather sloppily, I guess would be the word. So let's just search wall. Maybe not. Yeah, like that. Like that. Why not? Alright. Like, for example, some people use wall segments, right? And they'll like do that, and they'll kind of like try to put one on top of it, but it ends up looking like this instead. So I thought, if I'm gonna just show you guys how to make some rooms. So today we're gonna be making SCP-500 and SCP-1499. I have my computer up here kind of in the background, so I have like a bit of a reference for the architecture of the rooms and stuff like that, and it's actually a pretty easy one to make. So I'll show you guys, I guess, some of the things I use that make it easier, as well as some like the assets I use and how I use them. So first we're gonna use the assets that I have. We'll search SCP hallway. It should appear. We can use the SCP-500 hallway. The SCP containment hallway I think has two sides. Yeah. So if we use the SCP-500 hallway, which I made a while ago, and we're finally using it, I'm gonna set this down, and I probably won't need to make this its own separate room, hopefully. It's pretty small. So, yeah. So, as of right now, we already have the hallway down, and I believe it's already set to the proper security clearance, which I think is level 3. So, let's check this and make sure that we are proper. One more thing, actually. I may need to update the doors, but we'll get onto that later. It shouldn't matter too much. So, I know it's 4, but we can finally lower this down a little bit since it'll be playable. Fun fact is, to avoid breaking immersion by making doors just not open when you press X, I just set it to like a really high security card clearance to kind of, yeah, to make it seem like that's part of the game. no, it's because I didn't finish the room, that's why. So, alright, now we can finally start. So, when I'm looking at this model here, you can't see it. I may or may not splice an image on the screen, but inside this room here is, there are 2 doors. The one in front is SCP-500, and the one on the side is 1499, and then to the left is a desk, chair, and computer. And luckily, we can do that. So when we go here, let's just get rid of that and search wall. And when we do that, we'll find my asset simple wall segment, and we will place that down so the black line is facing downwards. The reason why is because when you change its color, you don't want there to be a random line on the floor. This will help just make it look smooth and intentional. And for intents and purposes, we can probably upscale it. Let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, and turn it so it's like that. Now just go over here and make sure that's not visible. Oh my, it's quite a bit there. I'm sorry, is there a gap in the floor? Oh, well, so there is a gap in the floor. In that case, because we're making it the same color, let's just kind of have it carry over a bit there. Alright, so now we have the floor, and all we're going to do is select kind of like this dark gray right here, and make it look like that. Alright, there we go. And if at any time I say want to copy it and use it as a wall, but I don't want that color, because I colored it inside the actual sculpture editor itself, if you get rid of its color, it won't go to default, it will go to what it was originally set at, which is that black and white. So we're going to be needing this later. Let's downscale it back to 50% and kind of set it over the side here. So now what we want to do is, if you'll notice, this looks kind of bad, right? Like there's a gap here, there's the unloaded textures, I guess you could call it there, right? So what we want to do is we want to make sure that we start setting up the walls and make everything look nice. And looking at the model here, it appears to me that it goes a little higher than this black line, and so as a result, we're going to want to make that black line face outwards. And to make as much space as possible, so with this kind of ridge there being the actual door shape, we want this wall to have as much space as possible. So we're going to have that right up on the edge there. Right about there is good, and just align to grid, make sure it's completely flat. And then we're going to go down here and make sure the wall is all the way up, because let's say we want to raise the roof later, we don't have to re-edit those walls. So there we go, now we have the first wall. And luckily the room is pretty small, so we don't need to worry about any extensions. So now we can go on to the next door. So for this, it's actually pretty simple. All you got to do is get the SCP door, and as I mentioned in a previous video, I made it to where the doors are now compatible with any old puppet that you use. So because of this right here, so it doesn't matter if you have my character or not, it should work. So what we're gonna do here is it should be the same keycard level as that outer door right there, which means it should be a 3. So we're gonna go in here, wrong button, and we're gonna set this to keycard level 3. And already everything's taken care of for you. The texture has changed, the logic has changed, so now it automatically accounts for that keycard. You have nothing else you need to do. All you gotta worry about is aligning it to the wall. So we're gonna just do that. Now we want to make sure that it's aligned properly. So what we're probably going to do is bring this wall just so it's aligned with the top of that door. That way we know where this door needs to be. Now you can also actually go to the floor here, and if this gray bar is visible, this little ridge right here, then that means that it's good. Because when the door opens, what you're going to see is this kind of little track here. And it's a pretty good measurement for testing. It would also kind of work, I guess, if you had it down there. It doesn't really matter. In fact, I almost prefer it being right there though, so here we go. Alright, so now we have that done, and to finish it, we just gotta copy and paste. So we're probably going to want it to kind of intersect a little bit here to make sure that the room stays relatively small. We don't want to make it extend too far. So make sure there's a little bit of a square kind of intersection right there. Looks like that. And it should go perfectly with the wall. But as you can see here, it doesn't, right? So it's an easy fix. Just take it in a little bit. Luckily, when you're over here, you won't really notice it too badly, right? The door's a little off-center. However, it doesn't look bad. In fact, it's not quite that way in the game, but it can be seen as not bad. So that's all you got to do. Now what we have are 2 doors, and we have 2 kind of empty areas, right? So now what you want to do is we're going to do 1499 first. So let me just go over to this part of the model and kind of go in this room. Alright, so now I'm in the room and it's pretty blank. And the cool thing about this door is there's not much space on the other side to the left or right. So you can cover this up. And to do that, just copy that simple wall segment, make sure the black line is on the outside, because you don't want to see that black line while you're in this room. And we're just going to put it right up against it. Give as much space as possible in this part. Make sure it's aligned properly. And there you go. So now if we back away, it should still look good. Yep. So you won't see any of the flex passing through. And however, one thing that we need to mind is that this room extends a little bit. Again, I'll try to put a picture on the screen. I have iMovie, so that's pretty good. Yeah. So I should have put a picture on the screen for you. I'll figure out how I did it, but we'll see. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to extend this wall a little bit right to there. Actually helps quite nicely that the floor here ends almost exactly where the wall does, so that makes it nice. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to outline this entire area. So let's make it right about there, right? And align this. Let's bring it back down. And now we can choose, well, I want this to be right about here. Actually, let's align it with the wall, the inside wall. So all we gotta do is go down to about 1/32 and just move it over a few inches. There we go. Then go back up to 1 and do that. Now it doesn't matter if, like, say this extends a little bit. outwards, because when you think about it, they're not going to see that. What they are going to see is what's inside here, and that's what matters, not what's outside. All that, no, that's weird. All that matters here is that the inside looks nice, and that whatever the player sees looks nice. And there we go. So let's check it out here, make sure that nothing's poking out. And now when we go back in here, here's what we have. So we have this area, and we have this room. Now all you gotta do to kind of finish this is grab that and bring it up. Now, you might be thinking, well, now we have a problem, right? Well, let's move that in. So that line that was on the bottom, well, it's still on the bottom, but now the player should be able to see it. There it is, right? And we lucked out, actually. We don't need to do anything because it just so happens the door is here. But typically, all you have to do is just flip it over. But we don't, because the door is there, and it's kind of blocking that view, so we don't have to go through the extra work of doing that. Now just make sure that everything is covered, and we've just finished this room. Now for 1499, we're going to be adding the pedestal, but we are not going to be adding the actual gas mask because I have not made the model for that. So what we can do though, I made file cabinets, so we're going to do that, and there they are. So looking at the, oh, my game froze there. So looking at the model here, the file cabinets are to the player's left when going in, and actually they have a paper on there, but we're not going to be adding that in because as of right now, I'm still trying to figure out the menu system. So until I make the menu a little less costly on the gameplay, we're not going to have as many papers. This is also not in the SCP game I have, this particular SCP, paper-wise. So I would have to make an entirely new microchip for it, so I'd have to make new text, everything like that, so we'll do that later. So there we go, we have the file cabinets, and now for the pedestal, when looking at it, it's just a little box with a little wooden box on it. So to do that, we'll go into sculpt mode, we'll turn on a stamp, guides, and make it on a grid snap just so it's nice and straight, and we'll just put a little box there. Now, we also have to keep in mind the player's height, which their head is right around this area. So, when the box is here, and we can always just color that, just be like a little darker black. There we go. Not quite Vansa, but it's close. Now just set it on the ground to make sure that it's not floating at all. I mean, they're not going to see it, but you know, it bothers me. I'm not sure if it bothers you. You don't have to pay that much attention to detail, but yeah, it's good practice. And now, if you really want to, we're not going to add, you don't need to add this in, that small box. That would mainly come with the gas mask. So we'll leave just the empty room here now. So there we go. And here's the coolest thing. Let's just go over to the next model and see what this room looks like. It looks almost the same. So there's a small divot in the wall for the SCP-500 now. Oh. So all you gotta do is watch this. Let's just copy this room and then paste. And what we're gonna do is we're just gonna kind of place it right here. Now, it helps going to the top of the map here because then you can align it properly. Don't try doing it inside the room because then you can't account for height. Why not just do both at the same time, right? So you're not going to get it exactly perfect. All you want to do is make sure that looks about straight. And if you can't get it with the grid, you can turn on precise move and just slightly move it until you see it kind of like look like that, right? Because that means that the textures are kind of melting together and it doesn't know which one is on top. Then just come over here, make sure that that doesn't happen, right? And if it does, you can just turn on grid, maybe go to like, what, 1/4, and close it. So now we have this room, and we can do that, and here we go. Now, what we want to do for this, because there's a divot in the room, we can also decrease that size a little bit, and as a result, get rid of that. So it's going to be a little more confusing with this one, but all we got to do really is just make a little bit of, I guess, a hole in the wall. So we're going to move that to the side, make sure it doesn't obstruct the door, and we're just going to extend this one. So let's bring it to right around there. Then what we do rotate it, and bring it in. Now what that will do is make that little hole. We can make it right about that size, like that, and then copy again, rotate it, and bring it in. Then now it's time for those fine movements, because you want to make sure that the wall is seamless, or at least close to seamless. You can't always get it perfect. And do that. And there you go. So now looking at it, oh, my computer's about to die, but luckily we can make it just in time. So now we have the basic model finished. And I'm not going to add in the box here because it's about the same thing, only this one has a door on the side. But now we're going to work on the final part, which are just a few other details like lights, all that stuff. So I'm not going to quite put a picture up on this one because although this is a good way to kind of model after the original game, there are a few key differences. So we're going to close this laptop here. So let's just work this by eye. So we're going to go over here. And another cool thing is I've also made lights for people to use. We have the red hanging light and the small ceiling light. Now this one is typically used for breach areas. So we're going to add, let's do one in here, and then one in every single other room kind of in the center. So now you can't quite tell if it's center, but you can eyeball it. Center would be maybe right around here. And then just make sure it's against the wall. And there you go. Now we're going to add in another one, and to keep it center, we're just going to go to 1, make sure it doesn't go back and forth, and just bring it on in here. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to grab this one, and we're going to bring it on in here, and you can rotate it and keep it going long ways, kind of like with the rest of these rooms. And you know what? I'm going to do that, just because I feel like it. Now, it's going to kind of move off in the center a little bit, but luckily, it's already kind of in center. If it wasn't, just kind of scale down a bit on the grid and move it however you feel. So let's do that, and let's actually, this one's really bright, let's move it from 200 to like 100. There we go. So now we kind of have these rooms here, and we're going to add in the final thing, which will be a desk, and I think we'll stop it there. And then we'll just save the scene, and then it's done. Now, with 1499, there's another dimension, right? And you guys didn't actually see that yet. So I have been working on it though. So there is actually a new map coming in for when you guys put on the mask. I'm currently working on trying to finish that dimension, add in the NPCs, and then I'll make it to where you can actually pick up the mask and put it in your inventory and put it on whenever you wish. However, I'm not sure how I'll make the player spawn back where they left off. That's going to be a little more difficult, but we'll see how it works. So now what we're going to do is bring it in there. So there you go, now you have a desk. And of course, I haven't made a chair yet. And we could put labels there, but again, that's another finer detail that we'll probably do later. We're already at 18 minutes, so I don't want to drag this on any longer than I need to. And also, there were no other details in here aside from that little box with a door on it. So yeah, I'm gonna see if I can, edit some photos in of the actual models to help you guys out. But if I can't, then well, this is actually a pretty accurate version. So I'll just edit photos, like screenshots of this in for you guys to see. But that's it. So now when you look at it, the outside looks up. Look at that. There's a little error here. We're just gonna move that one in a little bit, and there we go. So now final check. Door looks nice, grooves look nice, and I'm pretty sure that the ceiling has been completely used. I'm sorry, how did I get here? Alright, so let's go back into this room. Ceiling's good, and ceiling is good. Did I see a little error there? Why, yes I did. So now, that's interesting. Let's see if I can move this here, right? Cover that without there being this here. Now, you see how that problem is there? Well, watch this. Let's just make sure we don't lower it at all. We're just going to move it to the side here, and we're going to keep doing that, and if need be, we're actually going to add a second ceiling. Let's find out if we need to. So as you can see, we do, right? So what we can do is we can move this one kind of inward a little bit, and just enough to kind of cover up that hole. So what that should do is leave that blank, and it should leave the ceiling good. The ceiling is good. Ah! There it is. There we go. And now all we have to do is fix that. Now as a result, what's most likely going to happen is we're going to see the other line as well. So if we do, I'm not sure where it is. There it is. There's the other line, right? Now does it go into any of these other rooms? Why, it does. So we're going to delete it and do that. Alright, so looking at it, that room's covered. This room needs to be covered. So what we'll do is we'll slide that to the side a little bit and make sure that's good. Now as a result, that room's good, good, and good. Is a hallway good? Again, no it's not. But we can fix this, we already did. All we had to do was get rid of the lines, which means that there should be a hole here, and if there's not, then we did it. We've officially made SCP SCP rooms for 1499 and 500. And it appears like we're good. So this is a bit of a longer video, as you guys can see. I decided to make this because I thought, I gave you guys all the assets, but I didn't quite show you guys how I make stuff. And so this is kind of my attempt at that. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope you guys can learn something with this. So this is what the official thing looks like. Again, not pretty on the outside, but it doesn't need to be. And yeah, so later I will be adding in, probably off camera, I'll add in like the modeling for the gas mask, as well as some of the finer details, labels, and all that stuff. So I'll be done. Yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. Please like and subscribe, and I'll give you a cookie. Yeah, so that's it, and bye-bye.